Folks, welcome to this meeting of the Cemetery Board. I am Dan Shapiro, Secretary of State, State as Chair.
Bob Welch, Dr. Musha, Commissioner of Health designee.
And I'm Chris Wiles, the Attorney General's designee.
Mr. Fisher.
Richard Fishman, Director of the Division of Cemetery.
Howard Carr, Associate Accountant.
Glenn Breen, Investigator, Division of Cemeteries.
Mike Thielman, Senior Investigator, Division of Cemeteries.
Joe Ambrose, Associate Accountant, Division of Cemeteries.
Tony Melillo, Counsel to the Cemetery Board.
Suzanne Dressel, Clerk, Division of Cemeteries.
Well, welcome.
One more, Dan.
RJ.
Oh, you're prosecuting.
RJ?
RJ.
Hi. All right, have folks had a chance to review the minutes?
Yes.
Any questions, comments, corrections?
And a nice job with them. Unless somebody's got 25 corrections on that I missed.
Then he'll amend that statement.
No, I was good.
I move to accept them.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Wow, see that? Thanks, all right, so usually Tony says on legislation and regulation, I got a couple, but he warned us in advance that there's a ton.
Yes.
So why don't we focus on those that are of more immediate importance to the board? Two House bills, for instance, and those that have significant impact.
Okay.
I'll let you choose.
I think we can start with number 6. This bill would remove the vandalism fund from the jurisdiction of the Comptroller and Tax Commissioner and give it to the Cemetery Board exclusively.
Have you taken a look at the memo in support? I mean, do you know why? I just.
I don't recall. It's been a while since I've looked at that
Okay,
one.
that's interesting. We should track that, obviously.
My guess is that change might affect whether the funds could be swept into the general fund.
Oh, I got it. All right.
So I think that might be, and it has passed the Senate, but nothing has happened in the Assembly.
All right. Well, I think we better take a look at that one.
Yep.
Okay.
Oh, sorry.
That's the NISAC bill. Okay. So then we understand what it's about.
Yes.
Okay. Very good. Thanks.
Let's see. The next item of significant action is number 10. Well, this just goes to the penal law and cemetery desecration. Let's see.
They're going to get to the execution level?
Not yet. It's a veteran's cemetery.
Oh, excuse me.
Number 12 is an interesting one. It's a 2-House bill. It's brand new, so nothing, well, it's not completely brand new, but it removes the word public from the declaration of policy dealing with saying that, the cemetery board has jurisdiction over public grounds, burial grounds, and that says burial grounds. And it adds a sentence, as you can see in the description, about the vital interest of regulating cemeteries. And the memo in support says it's intended to expand the jurisdiction of the cemetery board, but I'm not sure that it does.
If it doesn't change the effectuating statute.
Right. I mean, the exclusions are still there for religious, municipal, so I'm not really sure what the impact would be. Number 13. This is actually significant. Instead of requiring court approval for purchase and sale of lands and designation of fiduciary of trust funds and some other items, it puts all the approval on the cemetery board rather than having to go to court. So the board wouldn't just be recommending approval of the buy or sale of land and be approving it. Then this last item.
Can I speak to that one, the 13? This is an example. This is just an example. We have a small, it's not on the agenda today, probably will be next month, to purchase, a little
Half acre
of land. I think it was $20,000. It's going to cost them legal fees and everything else at least $1,000, if not $2,000.
Right.
Because they have to go to court. So That's just reality.
10% of the purchase price.
It also, where a person owns a burial lot and decides to resell it, but the cemetery hasn't offered to repurchase, and now they're selling it to someone else. That has always required cemetery board approval. This bill would eliminate that cemetery board approval requirement. They still have to comply with the statute, it just doesn't get reviewed and approved by the board. So that has passed the Senate, and no action in the Assembly. Let's see, the next two-house bill.
Cremation.
We might want to go down to
Number
6.
18, isn't it?
Yeah, but, okay. 18 is the next one. Yeah, it would include chemical processes, the definition of cremation.
And we've discussed that in prior meetings.
Yeah, and I think
All right.
certainly wouldn't object.
There's some interesting things on the calendar, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been busy.
Good for you. So there are some other interesting bills, but none of the other ones are two-house bills.
Okay. Very good. Anything on regs?
No movement, still waiting.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Mr. Fisher?
Yes. I'm not getting into specifics, but this is a legal question, I guess. Yeah, it is. What happens, and ask the question, what happens if a judge ruled against what the statute actually says? I'm not saying it doesn't.
We have something on the agenda that might fit that perfectly, but, no, I don't. You cut to the chase, kid. What?
Well, now you have case law, quote unquote, case law, where a judge has ruled diametrically opposed to the cemetery law in terms of ownership of the grave.
Do we have a recent case you're talking about?
Yes, yes, and we'll probably talk about it more later, but, what do we do?
Let's go on to the next topic, because I have no idea what you're talking about. Next topic.
Okay.
Well, what Rich referenced before talking about the court approval for the land transfer, we've got a cemetery in Herkimer County that they want to buy a half acre to expand the existing cemetery. The cemetery is bounded by a road on the north and the south, and the only way they can go is west. The purchase price is $20,000, which is in excess of the appraisals. The appraisals show it roughly around $13,000, and they've submitted everything but the current appraisals, because the appraisals are old. They haven't paid for a survey, and they haven't drafted a petition and got a court date, because they don't want to go through that and spend the money if it's going to be prohibitive based on the fact that the appraisals, they know the appraisals don't meet the value. I was out there and I looked at the land. It's suitable. It's a hayfield. It's ready to go. The reason I believe that they're interested in purchasing is they have nowhere else to go. It's a horse farm adjacent, so they feel the land is got more value than maybe what the appraiser says. So basically, they're asking if the board would consider it, even if the appraisals do not meet the purchase price.
That's not. The fact that we're getting appraisals, there's nothing that says, all right, that the property must be within those appraisals, purchase price.
Right.
All right. In fact, the property could be worth more to the cemetery than its appraised value. But that's a matter of fact and circumstance that has to be presented to the board or to the division and
Right.
communicated to the board. So there's no hard and fast rule, all right, but that is a guideline for us, obviously. If a property comes in at more than the appraised value, we have a lot of questions about that. And there's a relatively large, burden on the part of the cemetery to tell us, oh, it's worth that to us, here's why.
Okay.
So, yeah.
So they should submit with the idea that if everything else is met, that's not going to just kill it.
It's not going to, I want to be clear, it's not going to kill it as a matter of course,
Right.
all right? It's going to be reviewed, they have an opportunity to convince us. you know, that in fact, the property is worth that money to them.
Right.
And it may well be, right, you know? They say in 5 years, I recoup all my expenses, and, you know, I recoup the purchase price, and I have 200 burials, well, yeah, okay, you know? If it's a 100-year payout, maybe not.
Okay.
I don't know.
All right.
Was that, Tony, I mean, I didn't say anything out of turn there, right?
Well, the statute says a cemetery corporation can't agree to pay more than the fair and reasonable market value. But as you indicated, you know, the fair market value to a cemetery that's adjoining the land is going to be different than a general.
And you know,
general
there are
public,
other
so-
kinds of appraisals, all right? There are market-based, you know, comparison appraisals, and then there are
Right.
more commercially oriented appraisals, which may be appropriate for this property, all right? So, can you have
Well,
specific knowledge of that?
you usually can find an appraisal that'll give you the value you want, if you look far enough. And, you know.
But then
They can reason, what Dan's saying, or some other reason, to come up with a legitimate value.
Okay.
Legitimate is the key word,
Yeah.
since the Division of Licensing Services is responsible for the regulation of appraisers. But like an income approach, all right, that's a different way to value property, that's more
How much
appropriate.
could be generated in lot sales versus how much they pay for it?
It's, an appraiser will know, I don't even get into. But
Yep.
yeah, it's a commercial-based application of valuation. So, yeah, maybe a little education. What I will do for you is hook you up with one of our investigators and licensing services who's more familiar with appraisal
Okay.
stuff. And you can do a symbiotic learning and maybe help the cemetery out. Sound
Good.
good?
Good.
Okay.
Thank you.
We're involved with a case with a pet crematory. As a part of that process, we've uncovered an unlicensed pet crematory who is using alkali hydrolysis, which is going to cause celeb in the human area. The issue is that they're not licensed is an issue. The process of what they're doing with the animals.
Is this the Cornell?
I think it's Cornell, yeah.
Yeah, it's a little more,
Complicated.
it's an animal hospital, so,
That's not under our jurisdiction.
well, it
But-
wouldn't be.
Right.
However, they're offering the service to members of the public. They're not just using it internally.
They charge a fee for it and all that?
Cindy's still doing her investigation.
Yeah, so you got a
So
price
it's-
list.
we don't have all the
We're
information.
premature then. Yeah, I mean, you know, whether or not, the threshold issue is whether they're supposed to be regulated by us. If they're not, and it's not our jurisdiction to call them, if they are, then we'll take it on. So why don't we wait and see what our investigation reveals?
Yeah. We'll get a written report
Okay.
together.
Okay,
So that's that.
all right. I assume, Howard, this is you? Jeff's
Judge,
not here today?
what do you call it, the director has,
Well, you could do it, Howard. I mean,
okay.
You do it.
Yeah, Rich doesn't want it. Basically,
I delegate.
it took in this much, we paid out that much, we got this much pending.
Right.
Vandalism report.
For the current fiscal year ending March 31st of 2014, the vandalism fees collected is presently $14,095. Applications granted were $157,613, and applications pending $414,015.
Okay, thank you. I know that was tough.
I
Glad you got
practiced.
through it. Okay. All right, Olean Cemetery, crematory, I'm sorry. Oh, I'm sorry, I missed, I went right by the vandalism, repairs, there's one that I wanted. Yeah, we got a couple interesting ones on this. First one is Forest Lawn. Is Forest Lawn here, maybe?
No.
Yes, okay. So, they made an application to us some time ago for replacement of the vases, right? And they were stolen, so they didn't fit the definition, so we had to turn them down on that. Now they've come back with the theory that the holes that are left are dangerous. May well be true. but I want your opinion on that. Did we granted that before? I sort of recall this being.
Yes.
We did it for,
Memories Gardens.
Memories Garden, that's right. And it is, is it, that's what I wanna know.
It is. There are, well, somewhat less than 377 holes. They're about 4 inches in diameter. They're not, it's a memorial park, so there's a flush base with a bronze marker on top of it. They're not all set up where you can see them. They originally applied, they were stolen in 2011. And that's when the original application was. They followed up last year with an application. I've been out there 4 times.
Right.
So, if you're paying attention to where you're walking, you're fine. But there are areas where the plaques are sunken a little bit, and not only are they sunken, but there's this 4-inch hole there. So you could, I think that they're hazardous.
Okay.
One of the things that I did in testing them to see if they were hazardous was stuck my toe in them.
Yeah.
And, you can stick your foot right into them. If you were to step wrong, you'd probably mess an ankle up pretty bad.
Mm-hmm.
Something that's not included in the report that you had, I was out there earlier this week. There are a number of them that have been filled with gravel, which they wanted to avoid doing because it really changes the appearance. You have this polished bronze marker, and then in the center of it, there's this hole that should hold the vase or this cap, and they've been filled with gravel. Those are no longer hazardous. So I revised the report to take those out because they stuck my foot in there and it wouldn't go in. Right. That being said, it kind of destroys the imagery of the monument because now you've got kind of gravel and weeds growing out of that little area. We looked at it at Memories.
You're giving me that last part. I gotta think about it. You can keep going.
We went to Memories Gardens. It was very similar, the same amount,
Right.
and it was granted based on making the public aware, and they were able to get caps. And that's the real problem with this was the reason this took so long is I want 2 estimates for caps, and they could only get 1 estimate for caps, and it was $87, and it was more than twice what the alloy replacement bases were.
Yep.
So it's kind of a sticky one. I don't know. And then when I went out this week, what I was looking for was follow up on the actual vandalism. There were 3 people arrested. 2 of them I think they got 1 to 3 for grand larceny and restitution, but the restitution is based on a lesser number than what this 377. They couldn't prove all 377. And then there was a 3rd person who was arrested and charged. They were sentenced 5 years probation, and they were paying restitution, but they've since gone on disability, and that's gone. So the actual number for this application is down to $14,173.
What, is there any attention been paid to like filling it with cement?
It really wasn't discussed until I was out there this week and saw the gravel.
Gravel, 'cause that's
Right.
interesting.
And they
I
don't,
hadn't thought of that before.
they don't want to do that because it really does
And also,
change
yeah.
them. And
I believe cement's gotta be more labor intensive than laying these plaques in.
Oh, certainly, yeah. I mean, you would just
Drive up the cost.
put them in. I didn't get an estimate for that. I was really concentrating on getting a second estimate for caps.
Right.
And apparently, well, the way they explained it is they can only deal with certain providers. And for instance, I had them contact the people that Memories Gardens is.
Yeah.
Memories Gardens, I think they paid $18 for the caps.
Right.
As opposed to $87.50, and they called and they weren't able to. They couldn't get an estimate. So.
Okay. I really don't have any comment on it other than it's a dangerous situation. They've done what they can do. You've been there 4 times to get estimates. I think you're right. We could say throw them back and let's see what cement costs, but you have the appearance issue, and it's probably going to cost a lot of money too. Is there any discussion on this?
Mike, you've been there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So your recommendation is to approve it?
Yes.
I mean, I don't know how you differentiate between the cost of dirt and doing the cheap way out versus, but if you've been there and your recommendation is, then I'm okay with it.
No motion?
So moved.
Second?
All in favor, say aye. Aye. I don't have a problem with Briggs Street or Oakland, but the interesting one is Brainerd. There's an individual in the audience that may want to speak to that directly, but before we go there, it's never been a regulated cemetery. But they've been incorporated as a public cemetery since 1907. Tony?
Yes, this is something new to me. Until I saw this application, spoke with Chet, I didn't know that there were these cemeteries out there that clearly should be under our jurisdiction, but have escaped regulation. I'd always assumed that any cemeteries that we weren't overseeing were the private cemeteries and family cemeteries, those specifically excluded. And apparently this is not one of those, it doesn't be any of those. So it ought to be under our jurisdiction. I don't know how it has slipped out from under us. But now the town is in a position to take it over and is seeking funds from the vandalism fund for the takeover.
Well, I don't have a problem with that so long as we are statutorily capable of doing it. Although I do have a problem, the cemetery never paid in to the vandalism fund, and all that good stuff, we understand that. What does the statute have to say about it?
Give me a second.
The art trustees of the fund?
Yes. Well, all right, we'll start with 1507H. Cemeteries incorporated under this article shall contribute to a fund created pursuant to Section 97R of the State Finance Law for the maintenance of abandoned cemeteries. So clearly, this cemetery is not in compliance, has never been in compliance provision.
Was there any, and I don't know the answer, but I should actually. It says incorporated under this article, for Article 15.
Right.
So we have lots of cemeteries, of course, that were incorporated well prior to that date, the creation of Article 15. Was there ever a time when they had to re-up, basically, like Type B's did when they did types?
There's nothing in the legislation that I can recall ever seeing that required pre-existing cemeteries to amend their certificates. I've always worked under the assumption that when we changed from membership corporation law to not-for-profit corporation law, everything was just swept up.
No, I think that's right, but I'm just, it's interesting language.
Yeah.
Okay. So keep going.
So, that was paragraph 1 of 1507H. Paragraph 3 says, the monies of this fund shall be expended equally for the maintenance of abandoned cemeteries previously owned by a corporation incorporated pursuant to this chapter, or the membership corporation law.
Okay.
And then it goes into describe what maintenance includes, such as cemetery fences, lights, doors, etc. And then authorization shall be made by the Secretary of State, only approved by the board.
So it seems to me the key language is going back to cemeteries incorporated in this article, right?
Right.
And in fact, if your assumption is correct, and it has to be, that cemeteries were swept in on the demise of the membership corporations law, then perhaps, I'm just speaking off the top of my head, really, but what we have is a cemetery that is under our jurisdiction, either it is or it isn't, all right? If it is, that it wasn't regulated is a different issue, isn't it, all right? And cemeteries don't follow our rules all the time. One of the reasons there's a board and a division, and we seek to enforce the rules. Apparently, we didn't know, we didn't know the cemetery was there, and the cemetery didn't know it was supposed to be under the jurisdiction, but in fact, it was under the jurisdiction, we couldn't enforce that.
Yeah, we've got the other side too. We've got cemeteries that we've cut loose lately because they were religious from the get-go.
Right.
No reason they should have been under us. So it was a very imprecise sweeping in 1949, who was and who wasn't.
Well, we didn't have a master list of every cemetery in the state, and there's probably still cemeteries out there I'm sure we don't know about, and they don't know about us.
We get a couple every year
All right.
that we find.
And when we get those, this is productive, and when we get those cemeteries, a couple every year, these exercise regulatory jurisdiction.
Correct.
So
Right.
come on in.
Right.
So now we have,
How long has this thing been abandoned?
why don't we let Mr. Fleming, are you gonna speak to this?
Sure. David Fleming, the supervisor of the town of Nassau. I will tell you that it was abandoned,
2011.
The resolution came in 11.
the application was submitted in 12 as well. The cemetery, we were notified in December of 2011 that the cemetery was abandoned. And January 12th of 2012, the town assumed responsibility of it as an abandoned cemetery by resolution. And subsequent to that, we started processing an application which we submitted in October 8th, 2012.
What do folks think about? I mean, there's a legal issue. What do you say?
Just a historical perspective, because that was Len's concern looking at this, and he saw that the certificate of incorporation is included. I know the board approved funds for Guilford Rural Cemetery in Shenango County, and that was, they couldn't get the certificate, but they got a certified archived legal notice from 1901. There was the incorporation of Guilford Rural Cemetery, and that one was approved.
Was that one never under our jurisdiction?
That was never under our
That was
jurisdiction,
never under our
and that was,
regulation, I should be more precise.
well, yeah, we weren't aware of it. And
Okay.
based on that, I told Len, oh, yeah, that was my understanding of it. We probably should have checked with Tony.
Isn't the issue their payment in the fund that they haven't made, isn't that the issue?
Only tangentially to me, because I think, from what Tony has read, is that any cemetery that is under our jurisdiction, all right, satisfies the condition precedent for a town to take it over and receive funds from us. Whether or not they paid into the fund and in what amounts, all right, that's a regulatory matter. I mean, it is a moral issue, but I don't know that it would prohibit the town then from coming to us to request monies from the fund. You know, I mean, that's where, sort of like, yeah, we didn't get the monies, but, you know, it's not per dollar going in, going out, you know, it's simply to support the fund. We didn't, you could say we didn't do our job, even though we didn't know about the cemetery. We didn't serve a notice of violation on them in 1922, or 1968, or whatever.
The yours is he didn't comply.
They didn't comply, but now it's the town that's coming to us, it's not the
Right.
cemetery, it's gone. They're gone, they're done.
Would this be similar to the other side of the coin? If we found a religious cemetery in our files and suddenly realized it was religious, whatever we had ruled in the past, how effective it had been, it would now be moot because they never were supposed to be here in the first place.
Yeah, what's interesting is if they were paying.
And they were paying into the-
I never even.
Did you get the money back?
No, we never gave them the money back.
Okay.
So, in the cosmic balance of
Yeah,
things, it's
right.
balancing out. It's like, it's not,
They
it ain't the town's fault.
No, right.
It's,
Joe just made a
yeah.
comment that, go ahead.
Maybe you could estimate how many burials they had per year, you know, and what fees they might owe.
Well, it depends whether monies were maintained in a trust fund that went over to the town as well, right? I mean, who's gonna pay for it?
Right, which
There's
was,
no money, it's in
right,
magistrate.
no money.
Yeah, so,
If I could just comment on the
Yeah.
application. We being the town, were approached by the last 3 surviving board members who were not able to really continue operating the cemetery. They're infirmed and felt it important. It's right on Route 20. It's very visible. It was a mess. We took over the cemetery in good faith, based on conversations with people who are no longer with the division. But we contacted the division in advance when we were first contacted by the cemetery board, that cemetery board. And the response that I received was they don't know anything about it, but they'll look into it. I get a call back, they say, oh, this is one of those cemeteries we should have known about. Yes, we do have it. We have a certificate of incorporation. That's not the town's fault that occurred, and we're trying to do the right thing. We have a very visible cemetery. It's right on Route 20. There's a lot of traffic. We've already gotten a tremendous response because we've done a cleanup. And on top of it, we think that the cemetery possesses enough land that we'll be able to actually put it back in operation again, which is significant for us because we need to maintain the cemetery, and we don't have the funds to do that.
right.
So,
Yeah, nobody's saying otherwise.
no,
Yeah.
but I want you to understand where we're coming from. We didn't just jump into this saying, okay, here's, an opportunity. It was, these people came to us. We did what we thought was our due diligence in advance. We contacted the division.
Right.
They were aware before the cemetery was abandoned, and certainly after, when we submitted our application over a year.
They've gone knocking on the cemetery's door, told us. We didn't, did we?
Well, at that
How long
point,
ago was
that-
that?
There was no
that-
door to
At that
knock on.
point, there was 3 board members who were
Yeah.
basically, they were done. They were,
Right.
at that point, they were
If I
requesting the
can,
village.
let me just read the regs, because the regs actually are a little more detailed, a lot more detailed than the statute. This is section G, application for maintenance of abandoned cemeteries, part of 200.11 G. This is number 2. Within 60 days of receipt of a complete application, the cemetery board shall make a determination based upon the following. It lists 1 through 5. Severity of conditions, when applicable, appropriateness of use of prior payments from the fund. Number 3, compliance with New York State law affecting cemeteries. Number 4, priority of application based on previous applications and availability of monies within the fund. And then it goes, there's another section dealing with how the funds may be used.
Right. Well, we've gone through the equities, and that seems to be an equity fund. I think we understand. Neither here nor there, ultimately.
Are there penalties for not paying in?
If we had known ahead of time, yeah, sure, we would have issued a violation.
That's
We
what-
could
that's what I
have
meant by
required them
saying.
to catch up.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think focus is on the present going forward, right? And I can't see holding the town hostage given the set of circumstances that they had to deal. And if I remember reading, this is also some dangerous conditions that exist that need to be addressed and rectified as well, so.
Oh, well, I'm okay with it. I just wanted to get over the statutory hurdle. I think we did that. It's clear that they are under our jurisdiction, it's just we're regulated. That's important. So, why don't we then take a motion? We can do all 3. Anybody?
So moved for, we got Brick Street Cemetery, Open Wall Cemetery, and then.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Let's remember this. You can even write it up, Tony, so we have a sort of aggressive, but we have to be very aggressive when these folks come in, I think, or when we find out about them. We have to hit them up when they're still existing. All right. Yeah, we'll get some of the fun stuff. Olean Crematory, major renovation. I see it's a grandfathered entity. Is Olean here?
No, they're not.
Okay. Of course, I mean, it's interwoven with the pool directing business, as we see. It's gonna cost them about $136,000 for, and I was pleased to see the replacement report as opposed to the new report.
Right.
They got that.
They were closely following Finger Lakes
Right.
because they was kind of in the works.
Electrician, yep, yada, yada, this whole thing.
Same representation, if I recall.
Oh, is it really?
Yeah.
Same attorney?
Yeah.
Oh, he's
Peter
experienced.
Stevens?
Specialists.
So how does this look financially for the crematory? Tell us about it.
Well, they did 597 cremations. Currently they're charging $230 a cremation. So it's $137,000 a year. I guess the efficiency in the new equipment is what they're looking at. I don't have specifics for that.
I did note, I mean, it's pretty, you have an older crematory, you're getting a lot more of these very soon. I
Yes.
see there's 2 on the agenda today, as these crematories age out.
Yeah.
It's clear that they require a great deal more maintenance. That goes for grandfathered and non-grandfathered, you know, a great deal more maintenance, it just makes sense to replace them. All right, so we're gonna get a lot more of these, and I think that's sort of the plan. My question goes to, and I don't know if you can answer it, in both these crematory replacement cases we have in front of us today, I get, you know, I get what the gross income is, you know, I get that it's cheaper to run, I understand all that, but I don't really have a sense of what the cemetery is taking home, you know, what the cost of providing the service is, right? I mean, that's been one of Richard's pet peeves, is that the crematory, they may be doing gangbuster business, but they're potentially losing money. Doesn't sound like it here, but I really don't have a handle on that.
She has listed a net profit here of 60.
On that one? $6,000. I mean,
Yeah,
On that one?
yes,
That's a net profit if they install the new,
right, with the terms of the lease and all the costs that you put in installing the new one.
and how much,
Was that for a year, you know?
Yeah, for the year.
and how much they gross every year? 136, no, what was it? They gross?
Yeah, it was around that.
137, 310.
And what's the leasehold payments?
She's got 24 months, 35,000. Is that right?
We know if that, and where is this located? Do we know, do we think that's a reasonable and appropriate rent?
It seems reasonable
It
from the
looks
other
like,
ones.
it looks like an arm's length.
That's what I was
Doesn't
trying
look
to
like
get.
an insider.
Okay.
It is.
'Cause that's what I would be careful of, and it's a business proposition, that the funeral home, all right, is not unduly profiting off the activities of the crematory by virtue of charging excessive lease, you know, that kind of, I just want to be
Right.
sensitive to that. And, but you're telling me that it doesn't look like that at all. Okay. I've been told
Right.
that that's a reasonable rent for the area.
Yeah,
Yes. And back to your question of, now, anecdotally, I spoke to a crematory that replaced a retort a couple years ago. And the retort that they're adding, they're replacing here, it's another propane retort. And this is a little different. This was a oil-fired retort. They figured it cost them an extra $100 every time they used the oil. So they were saving $100 a case by going from oil to natural gas. So, and then you add that on top of the maintenance costs, and then about 4 to 5 hour cremation time down to 2 hour cremation time. So anecdotally,
Right. Right, no, we get it.
All right. I have to correct myself. I must have been thinking about the other one. This actually, the person doing the lease is the person who operates the crematory. So it's not arm's length, but
But as far as costs go, it's reasonable.
Rental.
Right.
You know this.
Well,
We can table it for a month and do a little further. I mean,
we could, because this is the first time I've seen this, I'm just reading it now, so. It looks like she did some due diligence on how much, it would be for, but I could talk to Rose.
I just wanna, I
That-
wanna make sure it's totally
it's
above board.
important.
It's fine,
Right.
right? But I wanna make sure it's totally above board.
Okay.
I think we have to be sensitive to, because when I see that they're grossing $300,000 a year, and with the improvement, you're only netting 6,000. Well, if this is the sole cost center, and we say services, the cost of service, that's great, but you know what? It just raises a flag for me, and I just like to have some comfort that, in fact, that everything's above board. Fair enough? Is that all right?
Yeah, I can call it.
And this new retort will be built, as a new retort. The other one will stay in operation until the new one is ready for operation.
Right, the other one will not.
So the other one's
It's
not
not gonna
being shut
continue,
down
right.
or construction. It's gonna be
Operational.
operational until.
And those deactivate the other.
And then,
We're going to, because this is an issue, but prices, the charges, we're going to audit all of the crematories every year, especially the standalones, because we want to get those numbers correct as best we can, because he's only making $6,000, so he's not. No, I mean, if he didn't pay the lease, it'd be significantly higher, but it's still not a lot of money.
No.
We've got some guys that are making a lot of money, as opposed to some that are barely making any money. And again, we're playing with this market share thing.
Right.
Got to keep my costs down and all of this stuff. Oleon is unique because he's right near the Pennsylvania line, and Pennsylvania is the mother's lode of crematories. They're opening up all along the line. And a lot of them are New York funeral directors, licensed by the state of New York. They're going across the line, opening crematories, and charging $150. So it's an unfair situation. And the only way to rectify that is legislative. Again, in the city, it's the same thing. They all go to Jersey. We lose 5,000 cremations every year going to New Jersey. I mean, that's crazy. No regulations, nothing.
Well, that's the issue.
That's the issue.
Regulatory structure.
But it's the New York licensees that are doing it.
All right. All right, let's go on. Locust Valley, another interesting one. So, it's not, I just started having this discussion yesterday. Locust Valley is located in Nassau County. Nassau County statute has two sections that apply to Nassau County. There's 1506B and 1506C, right, Tony?
C and E.
C and E, there you go. So 1506C is very clear. It has lists a number of counties, and Nassau among them. And it states that before you can acquire any land for burial purposes, you got to get the approval of the county board of supervisors. Essentially that. And that, I think, has been what the cemetery division has relied on and the board's relied on for a long time. However, there is also another paragraph that relates exclusively to Nassau County, describes it in terms of census and all that kind of stuff. That's Nassau County. It says what, Tony, in your opinion?
That cemeteries in Nassau County are prohibited from acquiring further land for cemetery purposes, and no new cemeteries may be formed in Nassau County.
It prohibits them.
Yes.
Yeah. Tony's done. I'm actually gonna speak for you for a minute, and
Sure.
then we can get into discussion. Tony's done extensive research that people share, but It appears that the legislative intent was in fact that Nassau County, that no cemetery land could be acquired in Nassau County. That's supported by a voluminous history of legislative amendments. However, there's confusion all throughout, and the fact is that the legislature never removed Nassau County from the list that would authorize the purchase of the land for burial purposes with the approval of the county board of supervisors. So we have something of a conundrum. I will say that the board has approved in the past. I don't know if I have, I'm sure I have. I'm sure you have, yes. Not knowing, not ever even seeing that paragraph. Have approved land purchases. It's gone to the Supreme Court for approval. The Attorney General has represented our interest in that matter, recommended approval, and it's been wonderful. Okay? But now we know, we have a better insight as to what the statutory framework is, and I have a suggestion. I mean, and we can table this for next time to take a look at it, but I don't know what the answer is. All right, I think I could harmonize the statutes, and there's all kinds of legal wrangling we can go through to get there, or not get there. But the fact is that the Supreme Court is the one that ultimately is going to have to rule on this matter. We're all officers of the court, there's a few of us here, right here. We rule on the merits, that is whether or not it is a good thing for the cemetery to purchase its property, all right, recommend approval. But we also inform our representative, the AG that represents us, as well as the court, that we have this disjointed statutory thing, and they can make it what they will. And I think there's good points to that. The court approves it, we have case law. The court, this is it. Well, we have case law there too. There was an amendment that was done to the statute in what year?
1965.
1965 to specifically authorize a Nassau County cemetery that had acquired property, a derogation of what they thought the statute was, and they retroactively authorized it to do so.
The legislature?
The legislature, which is one of the strong arguments that, in fact, this paragraph is prohibitive. Right? I say you got a prohibition, and then you got a way to fix it, all right, with approval of the county board of supervisors. But reasonable minds can differ. The legislature apparently disagreed with me back then. But in fact, they didn't remove Nassau County from that other paragraph. So anyway, that's the way I'm thinking about it.
Is there more legislative history?
He's
Is
got
there why they would do this?
It's so tortured, but
I mean, is it-
I'm happy to take you through it.
Now it's Tony's turn.
Is it,
Doesn't it go back to 1913?
It goes back.
No board of supervisors there anymore? It's now county legislature.
Yeah, it says county. I said board of supervisors. I think it says county.
County legislature,
It says county.
Yeah, I think so.
whatever the legislative body
It
is.
says Board of Supervisors or legislative body thereof, so it covers it. The initial legislation, the legislation creating the section which says if you're in these counties, you need your county board of supervisors approval was done in 1895. So that came first out of all of these. In 1909, they added Nassau County to that list because it had then become into existence. It didn't exist in 1895. So in 1909, Nassau County was added to the list of counties where they needed county board approval. 1913 is the first time this other provision came into existence. And it specifically said cemeteries in Nassau County. And it specifically prohibited them from hereafter acquiring or setting apart land.
or setting up new ones?
Except that it said that where burials have already occurred, those cemeteries may acquire contiguous lands. So that was the only exception they had.
But that's what this is all about.
Well,
Yeah.
this is just the beginning.
Oh.
This was 1913.
They were smart in 19.
In 1913, 100 years ago, no new cemeteries, but existing cemeteries could buy contiguous land to expand.
Well, we don't
Still-
know why. I mean, is it like waste dumps today? They don't want cemeteries, or,
Why?
or is it a lobbying group?
I don't know. I mean,
Not in my backyard.
Yeah.
there were so many cemeteries in Nassau County that maybe they thought they had enough. Yeah, I don't know. And I don't know where Pine Lawn,
Well,
well, Pine Lawn is.
there's something, but there's a lot of, cemeteries were an investment for a lot of years.
Right.
All right, these certificates of indebtedness were issued at these times, and it was almost like the robber baron kind of, folks would invest in cemeteries, give them money for startup, and then have almost a perpetuity payback, all right?
I got you.
They were making a lot of money, and I would bet that even back then, folks were concerned about the taking up of land, the undue taking up of land, maybe it was a farm, lobby against it, I don't know, for speculative purposes, I bet. Don't know that, but I bet. So anyway,
So that's where we were in 1913. Okay, there was a 1916 amendment. Was not significant, so now we'll go to 1919. This is where they took out the words Nassau County and referred to it by the date of incorporation and the fact that it adjoins a city of a first class. So from 1919 on, unless you knew the history of the incorporation of Nassau County, you didn't know this provision applied to Nassau County.
when did they change it from, when did they remove the contiguous land piece, the adjacent land?
Yeah. This is the beginning of it. In 1919, they allowed the use of contiguous lands which were heretofore acquired. So if you had acquired land up to the date of this statute, you were okay. But it prohibited the acquisition of new land after this date.
And that provision never changed, right?
Right.
So that's been consistent.
So since 1919, you could not acquire new land.
Under that
According-
particular,
Under this.
you were prohibited in that paragraph from acquiring new land.
Right. And then in 1965, Beth David Cemetery got this provision added that allowed it to use 3 acres it had acquired in the 1940s.
Just that simple.
Yes, the legislation says that nothing herein shall prevent any cemetery corporation located in Nassau County from using for burial purposes contiguous or adjacent land acquired prior to January 1, 1948, provided that such acquisition shall not consist of less than 5 acres.
Now, one would think that the legislature understood what they were doing,
Right.
all right? However, the bill jacket, which Tony will share all this, which he industriously unearthed, all right, refers to, and by the way, we'll do this, and they can get their approval from the legislative body pursuant to the other paragraph that still exists.
Right.
So they didn't know what they were doing, all right? I mean, it's just nuts.
Right.
Which is why I don't get too concerned about this, but that's pretty much it, right?
So that's pretty much it.
Sounds very tortured. So, do we want to, would you folks feel comfortable? We'll have Tony circulate his research, and we'll table it till next month, but,
I'm just amazed at the cost.
at the what?
The cost.
The cost of,
Well, what is their proposal for the 2 acres?
well, how much are they?
1.1 million.
Yeah.
Remember,
Well,
it's
this is-
Oh, I know, but I'm still amazed at it.
Yeah, but there's a
It's a
house.
lot of money for dirt.
Well, there's a house on it.
Yeah.
So,
There's a house on it?
yeah, this is the third, now we've approved 2 previous
Right.
purchases
In
of
Locust.
land.
Was that Locust Valley?
They've got
Locust
other
Valley.
appraised properties in that.
Yeah, so, total of the 3 purchases is 6 acres. They're landlocked. Okay. So their argument to the local towns, and the town always was an issue with them, they didn't want to put up private mausoleums, they, whatever, I mean, but they resolved all that. But the town knows they have to take the cemetery if it goes under. Well, they don't want it. mean, no, I mean, you gotta be out of your mind.
That's a difficult cemetery.
That's a difficult cemetery. It looks like if you ever wanna see a cemetery, a beautiful cemetery, that's the cemetery. It looks like a Japanese garden. It's unbelievably gorgeous. But they're just about done with the land, so they need that, there are houses on it, they don't need it right away. They're renting out the properties. And this third piece would be it's right along the line. And we've approved it, and, the county has all approved it, and the judges have approved it too, so.
Right, no, I sort of like my idea of throwing it off to the board. I really do, I mean,
Well, yeah, I mean, we'd approve it contingent on approval, well,
it is
the recommendation.
It is
a
informed, we would do our, we
Yeah.
would inform the court, look, we have this statutory discrepancy, it's been approved before.
Right.
The wrath of God hasn't been visited on us, but I think that folks should take a look at the statute first.
Okay, because the president of the cemetery, who's also an attorney, is waiting with bated breath, so.
But we can inform, I would recommend that he give a call to Tony, all right? Because he can advocate as well, all right? He wants to do legal research and contribute, that
They're
would be
just
great.
concerned about losing the sale to other potential buyers.
Maybe we'll move on it next month, right? Guaranteed, one way or the other.
Okay.
Okay. Another crematory, this time not standalone. So, income of $346,940, 2012, 1,145 cremation. What does that mean in terms, again, of, the profit center, if you will? I know I'm using bad terms for a not-for-profit cemetery, but, like, what's the overall economic picture of this?
Well, she shows an estimated savings of $12.58 per cremation. I'm just looking at the audit. Len was down and looked at the facility.
Yeah, their numbers are, they're doing, like, with each year, their cremations have increased like 10%, so they're steadily, I don't know, it'll probably level off at some point, but for the past few years, their numbers have increased, and they feel the need for the additional retort, because their two are still operational, but one is a little bit older, so their plan is to use, when they have the new one installed, to just use the two newer ones and leave the other one operational, and use that in times when the other ones are down for maintenance, or if they get an overload of cases, then they'll have use for all three.
So right now, they're not losing money on cremations?
No, they're not.
They're
As Alicia's report shows, they're doing pretty well.
Okay. And this, of course, increases efficiencies.
Yes, absolutely.
25% increase in efficiency.
Do we have a payback number of years?
Well, I don't think I have a payback analysis for that. But they are, using general fund monies for the purchase of it. So in payback, you mean as far as like if they were to borrow the money, or?
No. It's a $120,000 investment, right?
Yeah, right.
So how many years would it take to repay the general fund, if you will? I'm trying to get a handle on how economically viable this is.
If the statistics quoted here are true, the savings, the yearly new savings would pay it back in 10 years.
All right.
Just the savings,
At the current volume.
Yes.
But their volume has been going up.
Yeah.
And they can't handle it right now.
Well, they could, I don't know if they can't, they're doing, they're making do with the two retorts at the moment. But, I've been down there for inspections where they've had 6 bodies in the temporary storage because they're backed up. So, I think that, overall, I mean, even if they're the third retort is like used as a, as a backup, then, eventually they'll probably remove that and, when it becomes so worn out that they find it not feasible to maintain that one, so. And they have sufficient room, the space is large enough to accommodate the third one.
Okay. Anybody have any other questions on this one? Anything? Motion?
Moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
That's one.
Washington County's off the
Serial,
agenda for
Orange
today.
County.
I understand that this application for merger is from Victim Corporations.
Right.
Is there an issue?
No, I just always get Gary's approval before I bring it here, so that we don't have to come back with new papers.
Okay, let's bet Gary for this. Make sure there's no issue. If there are, I can. All right, wow. That, with all that colloquy, we still got through relatively
Yeah, well, that's
quickly.
because you didn't talk so,
This part was that?
you didn't talk so much, that's
I
why.
didn't talk so much, yeah. All right, so that concluding our public agenda, what I'd like to do now is open the floor up to, that doesn't conclude a public agenda, but it does it? Do we have any right after? Oh, it does. I'll open up to the floor. Would anybody like to address the board for any reason whatsoever? Please identify yourselves.
David Fleming from New York State Association of Cemeteries.
Wait. Oh,
Different part of the meeting.
yeah.
I just want to bring to the board's attention that the issue of standalone crematories is heating up, certainly in the courts, as well as, no pun intended. No one responded.
We're so.
It is getting a lot more attention in the courts lately, and there is.
Very well aware.
Yes, new attention in the legislature as well, and I know you're probably aware, there's a bill in your report by Senator Ritchie relating to a standalone crematorium. We've met with the sponsor and did a little investigating ourselves and discovered it's a standalone crematory that seems to only make, after salaries and expenses are paid out, about $300 a year. And the owners, operators of the not-for-profit desire to eliminate the not-for-profit and take the proceeds. And there is legislation currently for the legislature to allow them to do that. There's obviously a concern about the future of these standalone crematories that have been grandfathered in.
Yeah.
And the association is very concerned. We'll be meeting with folks on this legislation, but we want to make sure that you can take a look at it. And certainly we're obviously advocating on behalf of our membership in the court as well as the legislature. I would think that we should apply grandfathering provisions that we've never really agreed with previously, but now
What's actually sort of nice is that I think we have more clarity in terms of what the board thinks the statute means. We have some common law behind it now, and that provides a path, actually, for legislative amendment. Now it's clearer. So I'm not agreeing or disagreeing with any legislative amendment activity, but now that we have clearly defined standards, so we can look at amending the statute if, in fact, it's not beneficial to the industry. So.
Well, I would just follow up by saying that the direction that this board has provided with this new path that you clarified, as you talked about, I think it is now will elicit a response from the legislature that may not necessarily be beneficial to the regulation of the entities that you're regulating. So
we'll all be watching.
We just want to bring that to your attention, that we're obviously concerned because I think there are a lot of people across the street of the Capitol who really understand, really the reasoning behind it, and there are some that do not. It's a very complex situation.
Yes. No, thank you.
Well, that brings up with Mount Kisco. Their appeal is either going to be heard in June or September.
Mm-hmm.
The different times that's a big.
Yep, that is. That will provide some more definitive
Yeah.
clarification. Anybody else? All right. After seeing all of you again, what we're going to do is break for a few minutes and go into executive session. Yeah.
So next month, meeting back to the fourth Thursday, just so everyone knows.
As far as we know.
Is that when we meet or the third Thursday?
Third
Thursday.
Thursday.
Sorry,
That's
third Thursday.
So, I have a motion to go into executive session for legislative and investigative matters.
So moved.
Favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. So we'll take a 5-minute break, then we'll do that. I'm ready.
Okay.
All right, nothing emanating from the executive session. Thus I will move to adjourn.
Second?
All in favor,
You got
say
that?
aye.
Aye. Excellent.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Have a nice weekend, everybody.
Me too.